with Sofia, Sergio, Catarina, Liad, and Diogo, our guests, to talk about communicating science. I'll leave the details to Sofia and to Sergio for later, and I just want to give you a little bit of context into our session. So we are a group of volunteers at the European Commission's Joint Research Center that is celebrating the 6 months Portuguese presidency of the Council of the European Union. Colleagues at the JRC, so at the Joint Research Center, have been doing this since the early 90s. Basically, every 6 months, we have a new country and a new reason to celebrate. So this time is our turn, and we're calling this our Portuguese semester, and promoting and disseminating Portuguese culture, Portuguese science, raising awareness on topics that we care about, and trying to bring all these to the JRC, and trying to bring also a little bit of the JRC to Portugal. So we'll also be talking about our work, for example, during the semester. I don't want to take too much of your time with this introduction. I want to hand in to Sofia and to Sergio straight away. Just want to tell you to visit our website, visit our Facebook page. If you're in the JRC, to also follow our page on Connected, so that you're informed about all our activities. The most pressing ones at the moment is the photo competition of February. The topic is Desenrascar, and if you don't know what that is, you can check it on the website. So that's on until the end of the month, and in 2 weeks' time, a dancing night on Zoom, of course, very promising as well. So being together, I think for us, the Portuguese community here, celebrating the semester has helped us a lot through these COVID times. And we really want to invite you to join us and to be with us as well. So the more, the merrier. I hand in to Sofia then, and hopefully we'll have a great discussion. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you for the welcoming, and thank you everyone for being here for one more session of the Portuguese semester in ISPRA. And today we will be speaking about science communication. And our guests are Catarina Ramos, Diogo Matias, and Liad Hollander. They are part of the science communication team of Champalimaud, Foundation Champalimaud, which is a foundation, a research institute in the biosciences, specialized in neuroscience and cancer, and it's situated in Lisbon. So they will share with us their experience about science communication, and we can all reflect the importance of science communication. So I can share that there was Anne Rowe, who was a researcher in creativity and occupational psychology. She said, nothing in science has any value to society if it's not communicated. And well, can be a controversial statement, but for me, I profoundly believe it is the case. I'm not really a professional on science communication. I admire very much the people that does it. And I think it's a science by itself. But I will not go more into details, not to spoil anything that our guests are going to share. We will know more about them. But just before, and just what we normally do, to know a bit about also of the audience and the people that are following us. So it's arrived to the time of Slido. So I hope you can see my screen. So for the ones who doesn't know, Slido is just for you to answer some questions for us. You can scan the QR of Slido, or you can enter into the website of Slido and put this code. So I will give you a bit of time, and then I will start. So let's see. So first question, we want to know from where are you following us? And you can be as specific as you want. You can put your country, your city, Denmark, oh, Portugal, ISPRA, Spain, Heidelberg, Edinburgh, Norway, Povo de Varzim, I saw. Great, I see a multiplicity of places. Sweden, Carcavelos. Maybe it's my family. Okay, well, we have a big community from Portugal. Well, it's still coming. Okay, I think I will pass to the next question. Well, no, it's still some answers. I was waiting for stopping. Okay, I think I will move anyway. Next question, from a scale of 1 to 5, how much experience you have in communicating science outside your area of work? So you have from 0, and if you don't know what might mean, we put some explanations for you from 1 to 5. Okay. Well, it's very variable. It's going up and down. Okay, I would say like the majority of the people have some experience in science communicator. We don't have a lot of science communication masters, but also not a lot of people that don't have, but it's still good that people that like to know about science are also here. Okay, next question. In your opinion, how important is science communication in comparison with science production? It's a provocative question. There is no right or wrong. Huh?
A diplomatic audience, Sophia.
I can see, yes. Okay, so just to finalize, it's another word cloud. So if you think that science communication is important, why you think it's important? Oh, wow, clarity, impact, right? Comprehension, education, very important. Public engagement. I think in a year as this last year with the COVID, we can see the importance of science communication and how important it is to do it well. Not only for policy decisions and science for policy, as it is done at the JRC, but also for the community in general. And well, it's a very nice word cloud, I would say. I think we should keep it and use it. Okay, I think we are done. And I will give the word to my co-host, my friend, Sergio Freire, who will introduce our guests and give the word to our guests. Sergio, are you there?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So it's my pleasure to introduce the coordinator of this project and also the coordinator of the Champalimau Science Communication Office since its creation in 2013. So her name is Catarina Ramos. She has a PhD in neuroscience and a master's in science communication. And she will present their flagship project, Inside the Unknown, tell us a bit about the origin goals and will walk us through the different pieces or stories they are communicating within this project. So Katarina, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sergio, and all the organizers. I hope you are listening well. I hope the connection is good. So first of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity. It's really always great for us to talk about our work and the importance of this project, but also of the work that we do in general. And the idea here is that we get into the details of a specific project, but then we can go deeper into some of the questions that you already putting in this poll about the importance of science communication, especially now in the context that we are living. So I'm going to start with like an example, the flagship that Sergio was referring to, and then we can go into other questions. So people, you know, listening to us, feel free to ask other things, not just related with science collection, this project that I'm going to present a bit more in detail with the help of Liad and Diogo. And I cannot start talking about this without mentioning the rest of the team. So it's not just the three of us. There's also Marta Correia, who's a designer. And there was also Tiago Coelho, who was working with Diogo in the animations. And Teresa Fernandes, who was helping a lot in managing and getting approvals and proofreading and, you know, a lot of work that it's needed before the launching of anything. So I'm going to show you a photo. I hope you can see it. If not, just let me know. Of how this idea started. So let me see. Can you see this one, this photo? Okay. So this was from 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Liat, please correct me if I'm wrong. And it was the first like exhibit that we did at Champalimaud, and we wanted it to be in the external space. So we had like these wooden structures with panels, and each panel would tell a story about a scientific project with a nice photo. And then in the back of these panels, we would have photos from inside of the building. So people kind of had the opportunity of having like a tour of our spaces, of the laboratories, of the facilities, of the social areas. And this was like a combination of science with nice photos and then some text that would tell a story. And at the time we thought, well, this was nice. We should definitely do another exhibit. And then it took us like a couple of years to have some time to think about it again. So in 2019, we started thinking about like the second exhibit that we would have. And we started playing with the possibilities inside of the building, using the walls or the columns. You know, we were like exploring formats, and Diogo started sketching some illustrations. So we were no longer thinking of using photography, but instead using illustrations. And it took us a while, you know, to come up with the right format. But we wanted this second exhibit to be not just about results and outputs. We wanted it to be about the process of producing scientific knowledge. So we wanted to expose a little bit how things are done, how experiments are done, the setups, the technology, and also sometimes the back and forwards of it. And Liad was like thinking a lot of what do we want to answer with this exhibit, and what we wanted was to somehow go beyond the headline, as a science communication office, we also write press releases. We also have to share our outputs, but we wanted it to be about how things are actually done. And so Diogo started working on some of the illustrations, and then there was, this was beginning of 2020. And in March, we all know what happened. So definitely we were not going to have an exhibit inside a clinical center with the researchers and people going into, oncological treatment and clinical diagnosis, which is something that happens inside our center. It's not just a research center, there's also a clinical side of it. And so the exhibit was just, not a good idea at all. And so we started thinking, well, we should go online, as everything else, we should adapt. And it kind of felt a little bit like, like scientists doing science, this is not the way to go, this data is showing me in another direction. And so we kind of reformulated our hypothesis. And we looked for online platforms, for possible virtual, versions of producing exhibits. And then we came up with this that I'm going to show you. Let me share again my screen. And please tell me if it's not working. So give me just 1 second here. So this is the current Inside the Unknown, which is the name that we gave to our science collection. It's bilingual. So I'm in the English page because this is an English event, but there's also you can see also my mouse when I move it. Okay, so you can also move to Portuguese, and the name is the same, it's Inside the Unknown, but here you see Coleção de Ciência. And the way it was thought was that we would have kind of like a collection of pieces. So a little bit of combining arts and science somehow. And each piece of this collection is about a scientific project and how it is being unfolded and built in our institution. So you can see each square is a different project. We have for now 4. If you click in one of these, you get into the details of it, and the structure is always the same. So you always have a title, a very brief description, the laboratory that it's involved. Sometimes there's several groups involved. So there's also the collaborative aspect of science that we wanted to portray. And then the texts are always helped by these beautiful illustrations that are also animated. And the structure always follows the same rules. We start with a question, just like the scientific process. And then we go into the scientific approach, how things are done, the setups, how the questions were evolving as data was coming in. And then we have this final part that I really like about this project, which is like the current status of it. So we don't close it. We keep the questions open, and we kind of end each page with the way scientists are thinking about it at the moment, and how they are exploring new questions as a consequence of their studies. And then the very bottom of it is this like keywords, so that people can find projects with the same keywords or do a search for a particular topic. And so I think this is an example, and I'm not going into the detail of each one of them, but if I choose another one, you can still see, right? So if I choose another one, you see that the structure is pretty much the same. Okay, So we always have this question with animations and so on. So I think this is overall what the project is. And I'm sure Liad and Diogo can tell you about how the creative process and all the iterations that we had to go through, both in the text and in the illustration side of things. But I think now people at least have a sense of what it is, this science collection. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, but please let me know if it's needed, I can come back here.
Thanks. Thank you, Katarina. I really like this project, and I really like the designs and everything. And I already have a lot of burning questions, but I think we should first give the word to our other guests. So I'll now introduce Liad Hollander, who holds a PhD in neuroscience as well, like Katarina. And she's the curator and writer for the project in Science Communication Office. So Liad, tell us a bit more about your work.
Hi, hi Sophia. Thank you for having us. So about the process of writing this collection, like Katarina was saying, we, after the first exhibit that went quite well, we wanted to go more into the detail, because, you know, science, when you can do it in these bite-sized type messages, and it's interesting, but there's so much more to say, and the more you go into the topics, people understand more, and then, you know, it's better for everyone. Oh, saying that you're not seeing me.
No, now they are. I think I just pinned you.
Okay. Actually, I see there's a question saying how we communicate with the scientists to obtain information, and I think this is important. So because we are the communication team of the Institute, we know pretty well what is going on, and also the community is very inclusive. There is a lot of interaction, and so we always know more or less about the projects that are going on. We don't ask the scientists to write the projects. Instead, we write them, and then we ask for their feedback just to make sure that things are correct, and so on. And that process goes very well, has been going very, very well. And I don't know if there are any more specific questions about the writing. Actually, I've been hearing from people were asking about the storytelling style that we've gone with, and I think that this is it's actually a very natural thing to do, because if you look at scientific communications, they're always done like stories. It's just that they are covered by this wall of numbers and graphs, and, you know, that is a bit impenetrable for people who are not scientists. But scientists actually work very hard on writing a storyline for their research. So it's actually kind of a matter of tracing that story, taking away the things that are more like the small detail that are actually not so crucial for understanding, and just kind of making it lighter. So everything is quite there. And then actually, so the illustrations, so the writing and the illustrations, and the animations, they're two parts of the same thing. So the text is supported by the animations, and the animations are supported by the text. And yeah, I think I will pass to Diogo to talk about that, if you like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now would be interesting to hear about the next guest from this team, who is Diogo Matias. Diogo Matias is the creative responsible for illustration and animation in the project. He uses also these skills for social and environmental projects. And we would like to know more how the illustration and animation process works, especially when there is the challenge of having to illustrate and animate already a written story, or if sometimes it is the animation or illustrations that change the way the story is told. So Diogo, if you can tell us how it works on your side, we
Sure.
would be delighted to know. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity also to talk about our project and science communication in general. So the process has been changing the relationship between the text and the animations a little bit, like Katerina was mentioning, like the scientific process. You try to optimize it as time goes on. And it started as I get the text, I read it, and I see it as a story. So I was starting to think, or I was trying to think of the illustrations and animations as characters in a story, things that keep appearing in the story. So you start creating a connection with what you're seeing, elements that people could recognize, try to keep clarity. So it started like that, but pretty soon it was clear that the ideas that came from the text had to be like kind of reviewed by Liad, because she's a bit more into the scientific side of the project. This part that comes from knowing a little bit more about the actual scientific study or project. So it kind of merged. It was like a parallel journey, either in the text or the animations. It's more typical that the animations change because of the text versus the opposite, but for sure now it's a parallel journey for us to be able to then, in the last stages, show the animations and the text to the scientists to see if they are happy with the result, which is a challenge because, as you may or may not think, it's subjective, but the style is very different from what I think the public and the scientists are used to see in any kind of scientific communication. It's part because of constraints, so it's easier to animate if things look a bit more simple. And because this is not our only project, we have other work to do at the foundation. It had to be feasible to have this as a parallel project, so simplicity is for sure. It was necessary for sure, but also because if it went well, and I think it will, it would create a very appealing or inviting environment for people to, even if the text is very, may seem a bit complex in the beginning, or the story may seem a bit daunting, or you don't know very well what that exact word means or what this system is about. You have these little animations, like at least asking you to watch them all, and maybe if you like them, then you read, or vice versa. So that was part of my thought process. Like, and we got feedback from some people, sometimes asking that it was becoming too abstract. You need to use like specific elements in this specific parts. Like it needs to be more clear. So we're like being peer reviewed, which is also part of the scientific process. Like people will tell you where to make it a little bit better, or and this connects to some questions that I think we were having about the target audience and how to know if this is actually working for the general public. For example, we get this feedback from the general public, not a lot of people so far, but we are getting this feedback. So it appears to be working, but it's also, we had a launch of the project with 4 pieces, but it's still like a young-ish project. So I think probably the next step would be that, to start understanding who is seeing it or what do they think about it. But in terms of, to go back to the animations, it's the thought process is, if this is a story, who are the characters and what are they doing? And what is the message I need to represent visually for the person to maybe understand better or imagine what the text is talking about? So it's like, so people don't have to imagine it from nothing. They can start from the animation and then get the full picture from the text. I have not been looking into the Q&A, so I'm not sure if there are questions.
Yeah, we will go through it again. Maybe it's easier. We can answer. So now we officially open the Q&A part from the audience, but I will take advantage and I will make the first question just very quickly. So for this particular project, but also with your science communication projects, how does it work? You try to fill with information that you feel that the public needs, or there is something that you as institution, as Champalimaud, you really want the people to know, or a specific group of people to know? Well, probably it's a mix of both. And in the second, maybe you need to call more the attention. Of course, the animations help with that. And yeah, if you could talk a bit about that process. So how do you feel there is a need, and what from the public, and what do you do when you really want to call the attention of the people?
So I can start, but maybe Liad and Diogo can complement and jump in. Just interrupt, feel free. So it's a challenge to decide, for example, if we look at this project, which study are we going to highlight? You know, what's the criteria? Why this and not that? And that's something that we also struggle, not just with this one, but you know, in general. And what we try to do is, one, to work with our community and be aware of what's going on, what is exciting internally. And of course, we also want to reach the public. So we then have to work also towards something that is accessible. For the science collection, the original idea was actually to highlight projects that were outputs from collaborative efforts. So projects that were done by several labs, several units, that were bringing clinicians and researchers, basic science with applied or clinical science. So we have a couple of projects. The first one, for sure, it's one of these examples. So we wanted to show how inside the Champalimaud Center for the Unknown, groups were coming together with different expertise to answer questions. And then you start adding other criteria, right? Because you don't want to have all the projects about cancer, right? So then you have to look at what else is going on. And in our case, we have neuroscience going on and very active and with a big presence in the scientific community and recognition. And so you then start balancing things out. And then as you go, you realize, oh, we have a lot of science being done with zebrafish, and there's no project about this animal model, so we should think about it. And then a very exciting paper comes out that got a lot of attention from the media, so the public wanted to have more information about that one, and so you then once again adapt to what. So it's kind of iterative process. We started with an idea, but then we were not just doing collaborative projects because we wanted to be fair and balance things out. And this also happens for other projects. We have to cover, well, in our case, we have two main areas, cancer research and neuroscience, but in many other institutions, you have a wide range of science going on. And I'm sure at JRC, you also probably struggle with this, with fields that are very wide, and you want to talk about everything. So I mean, it's something that you have to I think listen to your community, but also to the public, and then make some decisions. And depending on the formats, some type of projects work better than others. There are some projects that are super exciting, but maybe for this particular case of science collection that you need to have illustrations and animations, maybe the project is too abstract, or there's no visual, easy way to convey them. And so some are more challenging than others, and we also have to, prioritize. And there's always the biggest challenge, at least for me, which is time. And so the team is not just doing this collection. This is one of the projects running. So we also have to take that into consideration when deciding which projects to highlight.
Mm-hmm. I think we are very much familiar also with the question of time, because the ones that always want the collaboration with the science communicators in-house, it's always a problem because everyone wants their attention, of course. There is a question from the public that says, how do you communicate with science to obtain the information for your project? And this I was also thinking when Liad was mentioning that she's the one who writes it, not the researcher himself. This means that you need to have a lot of inside information. Probably it's not so easy when there are so many projects. So I don't want Katarina or Liad who wants to answer.
Liad, could you hear the question? No.
No, I'm sorry. What was the question?
The question, sorry, I will repeat. It's how do you communicate with scientists to obtain the information for your project? So, especially in your case that you need to write it yourself, it must be really tricky to have to understand all the different projects. So how it's the process to get the relevant information?
Yeah, so the way I usually do it is if there's a research paper, I read the paper, and there's always a conversation with the scientists, a kind of an interview where I ask any doubts that I have about the basic concepts, about the experiments, and after that, yeah, and also it's very important. A very important part of it is to ask them what they think is the most important message in every research project, because again, these scientists care so much about details that when you talk to them, a lot of times you just we did this experiment, and then we did this experiment, and then we did this experiment, and you ask, okay, but what if I had to communicate one thing or two things? What would those be? And actually, they know immediately. So it's just a question of getting into the bottom of that. And of course, after that, I write what I think is the summary, and then I send it to them for feedback.
For peer reviewing, as Diogo was saying.
Exactly, for peer reviewing. And also, actually, I have to say the team is also an important part of this process, because sometimes
I think she froze.
Oh, is it okay?
Everybody
froze.
The connection is unstable.
No. Okay.
You're back. Go ahead, Liad. You're back.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just saying that feedback from non-scientists is actually an extremely important part of this. So the further people are removed from science, the more valuable their input is. Luckily, in our team, we have scientists and non-scientists. So they really help to pinpoint more vague parts or technical things that we might have missed, things like that.
And Liad, I just wanted to add that we have been receiving a lot of feedback from people that see the project and then send us emails. Like there's particularly a couple of people that are like almost our external consultants. We don't even know them personally. I think they just became, you know, engaged, and now even with Diogo, even for the illustrations, they like send us a lot of very concrete and you know, improvements, and it's almost like we got these proofreaders without even asking for
like
it.
External reviewers.
Exactly, external reviewers. So I think this already tells us that some people are really into it and see it as a very good tool and want to help us to improve it. So for the people listening to us, I mean, our email is there, and we are really, as Diogo was saying, in the early phases. So we launched in November, and the idea is to improve. So the not just the feedback from the scientists or from our team is being incorporated. We are really reaching out to people that are not from the field, that are part of the audience, and who want to be part of it and to contribute. I mean, we are very, you know, open to it.
Okay, great, thanks. So we are having a few questions on the Q and answer box. So another one is it's about promoting the platform and reaching out to the audience. So how did you promote this platform, to whom, and how did you assess how your audience engages with it? I think that's a good question, right? Because it's hard to get feedback usually. Go ahead.
Diogo, do you want to start, or?
Yeah, I can. Maybe you can start, and because I'm probably going to be a bit more on the details or the specific things.
Okay, so for the first part, how do we disseminate? So we have been using different channels, social media, mailing lists, closed groups. We have been also in several like these online events where indirectly we end up, you know, talking about this as an example and disseminating it as one of our projects. And the type of feedback that we receive, it's not like we are doing proper impact assessment of the project. We are basically collecting this feedback in an organized way and keeping the dialogue with some of these people that are more actively sending us feedback. And then we have some stats from the website, but it's not like we are doing, you know, surveys or some sort of questionnaires or polls, or like we are not doing research on our science communication project, although it's something that we should consider. But as a first phase, we wanted to have it out, and we wanted to have some stories that could work as food for thought, you know, for people to get into it, to start thinking about it, and then I think we should think about the next step of like, is this reaching, you know, the audience? Is this interesting for them? Like to assess how it's going. But we don't have like at the moment like a proper, you know, set of tools for this kind of thing. It's kind of an informal, sending emails, writing comments on social media, or, you know, like dedicated mailing lists where people end up exchanging either from other science communication or museums, science centers, you know, these kind of things.
So yeah, I remember when we were preparing this event, you said that some things that you were doing were not really working. I suppose that you measure if it's working or not. If you have no feedback, then you mentioned that it didn't really reach the audience, right?
Yeah. I mean, if we were not here talking about this, we would probably, or if nobody was replying to any of our posts or any of our emails, or I mean, we would probably feel a little bit more discouraged about it. But it's not like we are, properly assessing if we are reaching the right public and so on. That needs other type of tools and of tasks that we are not putting in place right now.
Yeah, sorry, Diogo, I stopped you. Go ahead.
It's okay. It was just to add that also with the help of Marta, the way we chose to build the website eventually will let us, with the consent of people that visit, to maybe collect some information for us to learn from it. The example you had in the beginning of this meeting was very it made me feel like it's important to have this like cloud of information. It's just from personally, it's something I didn't had considered yet, because we were still in the, is this even feasible as something we can do? But now that it becomes more stable, and that we start sharing each project specifically as they come, instead of the entire website or collection, I think it will become the time to start thinking about this for sure.
Yeah, but actually this question came several times, and it was also something I was thinking about. Maybe it's related with the profile of the things that we do. We need to know that they are working. Yeah. Another question we have several, and it's, how do you make it approachable for different audiences? Do you need to make a big effort depending to whom? Oh, it disappeared, sorry. Depending to whom you're talking. Do you change the type of visuals or only language depending on the audience? So if you need to adapt the same content for different audience, depending to whom you want to speak?
It's usually depending, at least visually. I'm just going to speak very briefly about the visuals. It usually starts with who we think is the target audience. It's actually something we ask when someone requests as a visual request for our team. One of the fields is who is the target audience. So we usually go from there, but I think mostly because of time constraints, it's hard to do research on different cultures or different mental images of what a metaphor looks like in Sweden versus Portugal, for example. It's hard to adapt, to have this modularity in images. So I try to keep it very simple, or to use like very, very universal, almost emoji-based ideas. But if there is time, and if we have these like analytic tools operating, then maybe it would be something nice to also consider, to adapt. It just takes longer for animations or illustrations to be adapted this way, I think, compared with text, for example.
Yes, because different publics, I was thinking, the general public, or if it is for children, but then the images also work, or if it's a more formal environment. Of course, we do science for policy. We always think about something more formal, or like data that the policymakers might need it. I don't know if this is a reality for you, of course.
I think it was one of the questions at some point, like, actually, what is the public for this specific project? And please, Liat and Diogo, just again jump in. I think on one side is clearly more for the adults, so not for children.
Young adults. I think even teenagers could read it easily.
Exactly, and the fact that we have the Portuguese kind of also helps in that direction national-wide. Yes, I also think that a lot of our public is probably people already interested in science. So people who are already curious about science and want to know what's going on, like new stuff, you know, want to know more than what it's in the textbooks and what it's in the school books and, you know, what it's in the media. But I think it's, so it is already people that are somehow curious about science. I don't know, the general public is like this big, you know, mess of everyone and no one, because how can you, you know, design a project for the general public? It's really, really hard. But then I think we can take bits and pieces from this project and adapt it to different audiences. So like you were saying, we can use some of these illustrations and maybe tweaking a bit the text or making it a game can be easily, you know, adapted for younger kids, for example. Or if you want to have a panel of scientists talking to policymakers or even to other scientists, you can also use bits and pieces from this project, but it needs some adaptation, I believe. So I think the public is really these young adults already with some interest in science.
Thanks, Katarina. We have a few more questions. I think the next one probably is better suited for Diogo again. It's about the creative process for illustrations. How do you deal with this specific process? For example, when it comes to a review article, where do you read a lot of papers with many illustrations? How do you deal with innovative creativity and originality? Also avoiding plagiarism of components. I mean, is this an issue at all? Do you really have to try several things before you're sure you have the right thing?
Yeah. So specifically for review articles, I've done one with Marta Correia, the senior designer and web designer of the group recently, and I'm working on one now. And it's more or less, it always starts more or less from the same thing that Liad was saying, this initial talk, this time with the researcher to understand what is the main idea that they wish to convey with this image that they need for the review article, for example. And then it's also from you explaining to them what kind of works best for you, what's your process, how many times you would maybe need to talk with them to confirm that everything is all right, how willing are they to make it maybe a little bit less scientific and a little bit more based on symbols or visual metaphors. So in the end, like very basically what you need is to be on the same page as this person who needs a visual of any kind to communicate what they want. And what you can offer is this experience of handling different people, like you're the point person for all these requests. So you can also try to gain experience from that and just be like a guide, but also an option giver. That usually works well. So in the beginning, I used to feel very like, I'm going to try everything new and I'm going to make it beautiful all the time. But it's never like that. You have to adapt to the person that you have in front of you and what they really need. So in terms of plagiarism, it's inside the illustration world. There's this idea of you can steal, but make it like steal so well that they'll never notice. So it's like steal the ideas or steal the vibe of what you've seen or the concept. But then, because the person you have in front of you wants something specific, you can bring this like knowledge of what other people did for that other case. For example, I don't know, a recycling company and they had amazing logos to explain a pathway or a process that maybe will work, like that idea will work very well if I'm doing a metabolic pathway of how does the protein X end up at as a enzyme Y, something like this. So I'm not sure how you get there. Like, how do you? I think it's from experience, really, to have all these. Also, this outside view. For example, I'm not always reading science articles about how to make good illustrations. It's usually design websites on how to handle a request, how to come up with your own process, how to adapt symbolic language for this specific problem. So it's like you try to learn from people that think about this all the time, and then you try to use that knowledge to this specific area where you work, so you can become a better provider of what you state you are, be it an illustrator, a science writer, a graphic designer. So it's more or less, that helps, at least for me.
Okay, thank you. We have more questions coming in, and we will not be able to go through all of them. One is actually from my father, and I'm sorry, I cannot read your question. I hope you don't mind, Dad. I will finish with the last question, but if you need, you can always contact them, Katarina, Liad, and Diogo. I suppose you have seen their website. You can go to the website of Champalimaud and contact if you have more specific questions about the projects and everything. So my last question is something that I also found very interesting. It asks, how do you decide what goes into each social media, or do you suggest repeating content in all of them? And we have only 3 minutes. If you can resume in 3 minutes, because we really need to close it sharp.
So which content goes to each channel? Is that it?
Yes, for each social media, I suppose, like if you have something for Facebook, for websites, or for Instagram.
So in general, or for the science collection, sorry, just to understand what we are, it's like all the communication type or science.
Well, yeah, you can use the science collection as example if you want. The question doesn't specify. So
for science collection, when we have a new piece, we put it in all channels, but the way we put it in each channel may varies. So we might have slightly different content to share on each, but the juice of it is the same. You know, if we have a new piece, let's say the 5th one that we released more recently, we could have a little GIF for some channels and a photo for others, or a sequence for, I don't know, Instagram or a story. You know, the format may change, but the content would be the same. If we are talking more generally and not just a science collection, then it might be different. Okay, so we know that some things are good for Instagram. We know that on Twitter we have mostly our scientific community. So the way we are going to share is probably not the links from the media, is the actual paper, is the actual data, and you want to tag and you want to hashtag the things that matter to the scientists, which are not the same that you put on Facebook, where you have a different audience. In our case, a lot of Portuguese people that probably want to see the video from a TV show, or, you know, a short article that we wrote digesting those studies. So for science collection, it's pretty much the same content in all channels, but for other things that we produce might be different depending on the channel, because of the audience. Just, you know, you need to know who you are talking to.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to thank you all again, Katarina, Liad, and Diogo. I really enjoyed. I would stay here all afternoon, but unfortunately we cannot, and it was very, very pleasant. And I also thank to everyone that was following us. If you, please check our channels. We have a Facebook page, we have a website, but also Champalimaud has, so you can always check on the Portuguese semester on Non-Champalimo for other events related with science communication or not. So I'll now leave you with our video. I hope you are seeing it. Thank you so much.